And good morning. We are live on YouTube, and I can't tell if you can see that flickering on your end. It is certainly messing with it on my end. That's why I just restarted the computer. Anybody in the chat want to let me know if you can see that flickering on the camera as it's going? Nick will join us just a moment. It was an exciting game, no doubt about it. This is Forging the Falcons on Tuesday morning. Wasn't able to be here yesterday, but we will be on a regular scheduled show on Wednesday morning. Let me bring in our Facebook groups as well. We've got Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, and we've got Scott Kennedy Sports. Both of those are our Facebook channels. So good morning, everyone. This is Forging the Falcons. I'm your host, Scott Kennedy. I'm back from England. I went over there to help cover the Broncos and Jaguars game and went to a Chelsea match while I was there. The Chelsea match didn't work out so well, but it was a good trip down to Brighton anyway. And getting to kind of follow the Falcons game remotely, and then came home and watched it. And it was one of those, as you well know, who all watched it live, what on earth is going on? That was my main feeling for sure. I was watching the ESPN Gamecast, 99.7% chance of winning the game. And to be fair, they did. Lots to talk about here. I didn't want to put that in the description, but I definitely wanted to unpack some of the things in that game. Watching the game, I feel like the front four on the Atlanta Falcons is doing pretty well. They really are. I'm a big fan of Taquan Graham. Lorenzo Carter had his super high moments and some low moments. That's why he's bounced around the league a little bit. Arnold McKetty played well. He's a rookie. So I feel like the front four is good right now. You lose your top two corners on a team with as little depth this has, you're going to struggle. You're going to have problems. Not only that, you lose three of your four starters in the secondary. You're going to struggle. I saw some people questioning Dean Peace. What is Dean Peace doing? Are you kidding? You don't know not to get behind a guy with 10 seconds left. Let a guy get behind you. I mean, that's not on Dean Peace, I wouldn't think. That's pretty basic football. So let's say good morning to some folks in the chat that are coming in. Wanted to say good morning to Michael Ranquillo. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on Forging the Falcons. Good morning, Michael. And Roger Cook says, what an exciting game. We won, we lost, we won, and won again. I'll keep Mariota, as I've said all along. He's in the right place to continue to resurrect his career. I think that sounds about right, too. Aiden coming in says, good morning, everyone. I'm seeing to see how today pans out. Today being the NFL trade deadline, and all of a sudden the Falcons are in first place. Are they going to be buyers? So we'll discuss a couple of the names that have been floated around the Twitter sphere and why or why not they might make sense. Kevin coming in and said, good morning, Scott. I don't envy you guys discussing that game. Why not? What an amazing game to talk about. So let me bring in Nick too. Nick, good morning, my friend. Where are you today? That doesn't look like home.
Back in Iowa. I will be flying out this evening. So I was hanging out with my uncle and doing some things and family members. So yeah, didn't know we were doing this show this morning, but excited to talk a little bit of Falcons. And hey, happy Victory Tuesday to both of us.
First place. Happy first place, Atlanta Falcons. You're 4-5. So, that game, what was your reaction to that game? They did their best to Falcon that one up, but you've heard me talk about the alpha franchises, and I notice it more in college, really, but you see it in, you've got Alabama playing Vanderbilt, and the ball bounces the way of Alabama. The Vanderbilt guy trips over himself going in. It's just like this karma, this gravitas that these teams have. But when you've got two teams like the Falcons and Panthers, who both are keen on screwing things up, you get a game like this. As I'm paying attention to it live, I'm like, this feels like neither team wants to win. Like, they do, but it's like, are you both trying to go for a draft pick? What the hell's going on out there? Crazy game.
NFC South, baby. It's a wild one this year. Heck, I mean, I think every team in the division still has a chance to get it, probably besides the Panthers. But my take on this is the Falcons are probably still a year away, and in any other division they would be. But with the way the NFC South is set up right now, you got a chance. You might even be able to get in under 500 with a playoff spot this year, which still counts. You can hang a division banner. My other takeaway, though, my big one is that this defensive personnel is just still dreadful. I mean, AJ Terrell dinged up now. Hayward. I mean, we already were concerned about the cornerback talent. Now it's like extra. I mean, the Falcons might have the worst defensive personnel in the entire NFL right now. And credit to Pease for getting them to play at any sort of level. Credit to Arthur Smith for the offense. I mean, what are they, 9th or 8th in EPA per play? But this is a team that you should be enjoying right now because I think they're arriving to station well before anybody could have expected at this level of play given their personnel.
Yeah, you start thinking, okay, they're a year away. Oh, it's going to hurt the draft pick. So what? I mean, really, so what? Establishing the culture of winning and becoming a destination for free agents is much more important than, over the long haul. Than maybe instead of picking 6th, I'm picking 16th. So what? That doesn't matter. You want to win these games while you can. And they did. They found a way to get the win. Younghoe Koo is awesome. He's been the difference. He was in the difference in several games last year. Love the guy. They paid him. This franchise was broke. They've been finding ways to scrape, scraping couch cushions together to looking underneath there to scrape nickels and dimes in order to pay former Chicago Bears players to come in and fill a gap for a few games. But they did. They made Younghoe Koo one of the better paid kickers in the NFL. And thank goodness, thank goodness. He is beloved also. That's another thing. We talk about that with Grady Jarrett. Sometimes the personality matters. You still have a fan base. You still have a customer base. And winning will cure all. But until you're at that level, it doesn't hurt to have some personalities and some people, some players that the teams the fans can connect with. And Younghoe is one of those guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he's been clutch for you guys. Probably been one of the better kickers in the NFL over the past few seasons. And it's really obvious in a stark contrast when the other team's kicker was it Pinheiro missing shots. And I mean, we can debate the DJ Moore helmet toss until the cows come home. Stinks for the Panthers.
What's the debate? I haven't really gotten into this, other than, people don't think it should be a penalty. But when the helmet, he walked off the field.
Yes.
When he popped the helmet. So I thought it was a field of play rule.
Yes.
But,
and it's supposed to be.
But is behind, is it almost like airspace goes straight up? You're in my airspace. He didn't go to the sideline and do that. He was walking out of the back of the end zone and then came back in. I mean, is that I'm not debating the merits of the rule. Again, I'm a soccer fan, for God's sakes. You see the creativity they put into their celebrations. There is no over excessive celebration. It doesn't exist. But the letter of the law, was that an automatic, or should it not have been because he was out of the end zone when the helmet came off?
That was my understanding. Came off the field. I don't know if there's a continued field of play out of bounds.
Right. Like I said, because normally you think of it as being a sidelines thing, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure. But yeah, like I said, when you're not the alpha franchises, the Blue Bloods, and I'll even throw the Chicago Bears in there of the past, but the Dallas Cowboys, the 49ers, the Packers, the Raiders got penalized for everything, but the big name franchises in this league, those calls go against you. And it's nice playing against the Detroit Lions, the Arizona Cardinals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, historically bottom third teams, because something like that, it's nice to have something like that happen to someone besides just your team. You got a chance. You do. You have a chance. Joe Cannon coming in, says, good morning, Scott. And Dave also coming in, saying good morning on YouTube. Good morning, Dave. James Dockery says, what's up? Good morning. Rise up from Kentucky. Anthony Say says, heart attack for me. Absolutely insane game. Chris Walker coming in. So morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a great Halloween. Looks like we had a scary win. That's for sure. With last minute happenings, it's great to be in first place. Real quick on that. And then I want to, my comment on this, because you hear me, kind of talk about the quality of play, with the forced parity and all this, the quality of play. This is kind of what you get. You're expanding the regular season. You're at 17 games. You're in first place, but is your team any good? Michael says, Michael reminds us, yes, New England Patriots. I think I pretty much stuck to the AFC when I was going through the Blue Bloods. But yes, the New England Patriots got their share of calls that would go their way.
Yeah.
but you end up with a kind of a bad product. Does this feel like a championship caliber team? Oh, we're in first place. Yeah, but the product isn't very good. And between the PSLs and the expensive seats and overpricing your fans, you know what the lower bowl for that game looked like for most of the game? Look behind me. Look at my screensaver in the back. It was about one third full. That's a problem. The NFL makes so much money in their TV deals that owners might not care. But when I'm there and I'm watching a team from 3 hours up the road, up 85 in Charlotte, playing for first place in the NFC South, and I've got a 1/3 capacity in my lower bowl of the stadium, that should ring alarm bells. That should be a wake-up call for Arthur Blank, for president of operations. It should scare the NFL a little bit. The fans at the game are the lifeblood of our team. And then I'll get off that soapbox and we'll talk trade deadline a little bit. But, for me, it's a problem. The everybody is at 500 is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah. How many good teams are there actually in the NFL right now? Maybe I think there's 3 really good teams in the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs. And then after that, I mean, not to, talk down on any, but the Titans have only 2 losses. Do we think the Titans are a good team? I don't.
Do the Giants look like a good team?
No, the Seahawks should have blown them out, honestly, this last game. I would say that the Vikings probably are close. They're good. They're not one of those top 3 that we mentioned, but they're good. Mm-hmm. And also the Cowboys, both teams losing handily to the Eagles when they went up against them. So, yeah, it's not a there's a lot of mediocrity in the NFL right now, which honestly, given my Denver Broncos are 3-5 right now, I'm okay with that. Maybe we can pick away and get a chance by the end of the season. No plan for draft capital this season. We got Mark Turner coming in saying, "Morning, guys. I think I'm gonna live.
I think I'm gonna live. The heart attack, the old cardiac kids. I think the original cardiac kids. The first time I ever heard that expression was with God, who was it wasn't Bernie Kosar. It might have been Bernie Kosar's or Brian Sipes, Cleveland Browns. That was the first time I ever heard that expression. Early 80s was the cardiac kids, because you can go into cardiac arrest watching this team.
Yeah,
and Dave says good morning. Raymond says good morning, guys. And here's what Kevin Mapp also says and again, I think this is a team you can be excited to watch, even if things don't always go their way, because they are undermanned. They are. I mean, there's no excuse for letting those 2 guys get behind you. Just like, there's no excuse for putting the ball at the ground of the 5 in a game you lost to the Saints. That's not coaching. That's not even personnel. That's just falconing.
Yeah.
That's just the gods. But they never quit. Even when they went to the Bengals and were down 21-0, I was like, okay, well, they'll fight. And they did. They knocked it back. What was it, 28-17? They got 17 points in the first half. They fought. They just ran out of people.
Yeah.
So I agree. Now, to the topic on this, Nick, did Bradley Chubb and that win keep Hackett for sure? At least save his job. And did it keep Bradley Chubb in Denver when they won that game? Or would the right package still be had? And should the Falcons be the team that offers that package? And then I'll let you go, and then I'll give you my 2 cents.
I think the right package would still be had, no doubt. In my opinion on that one, the Broncos are now 3-5 on the season, but you have to pay attention to the moves surrounding the position this offseason, where the Broncos set themselves up almost in every turn where they could be comfortable not having Bradley Chubb going forward because of his injury history and whatnot. They drafted Nick Bonito, who looks like a fine depth edge rusher there with the speed rush. I'm not the biggest fan of him given his one-trick pony nature, but if your one trick is bending and speed rush, if you're a backup, not a starter, that can be really valuable in a position that has a lot of depth. I'm okay with that. You paid a lot of money
Sammy
for
Sosa had one trick too.
Yeah, absolutely. But for speed rush, if you can do that and you're not a full 3-down player, that's okay, honestly, especially at pick 64. You have Baron Browning, who looked amazing. I mean, Baron Browning is a really talented player. When you put his mock draftable chart and you move him from off-ball linebacker, I think they actually have it as off-ball linebacker on there, Scott, sorry, to edge rusher.
OLB.
It says OLB. Okay.
So Baron Browning says OLB. There is no off-ball linebacker position. It doesn't exist. It's made up.
Everything's made up.
Linebacker by name is behind the line. It's off the ball. It's from the Department of Redundancy department to say off-ball linebacker. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
We need to stop calling outside linebackers that then, because they're not linebackers.
Unless they're in a 4-3.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm okay with edge. I am okay with edge.
Well,
but
regardless,
every single time we reference an off-ball linebacker, it's an inside linebacker. And it's been an inside linebacker for 150 years. Every single time. So just scrap that phrase from your vocabulary because it sounds ridiculous.
I can't help it. I'm wearing the Iowa hat. I'm leaning into the ridiculousness. But when you switch his position to edge or whatever the pure outside rush linebacker is, his number one athletic comparison is Khalil Mack out of every player that's ever gone through the combine.
Yeah, a little short, but all the burst, it doesn't necessarily have the length, but he's got all the bursts. And that was the knock against Khalil Mack coming out too is, does he fit that? In fact, a little bit was the knock against Von Miller. If there was any not there was a ton, but when you've got that kind of burst and power, when I can beat you with speed and power, length isn't necessarily as important.
Yep. And then, of course, you also have Randy Gregory, who, when healthy, is really talented, and Jonathan Cooper, who's a good fourth edge rusher. You talk about the opportunity cost. Adam Schefter said on multiple interviews now, Bradley Chubb is going to get a deal that's easily north of $20 million a year. And I think he's probably worth that given he's kind of got a gravity to him on that defense right now. He's their best power rusher. But this Broncos offense is absolutely horrible and dreadful. And you can get draft picks, you can get $20 million to use in the offense. Maybe that's something you have to consider. So I definitely think he's available. If the Broncos don't get a deal that they view as fair, they'll probably keep him and try to work on an extension themselves. What is a fair deal? I'm thinking right now, given what the market is, it sounds like Josh Allen is being shopped right now. Not the quarterback, the edge rusher from Jacksonville, folks. It sounds like Brian Burns, the Panthers maybe turned down 2 first-round picks. If Brian Burns is getting offers for 2 first-round picks, Chubb is probably worth a 1 plus a early day 3, late day 2 pick, given his age and pedigree. So if somebody's offering me a 1 and a 3, I'm probably interested. Should the Falcons do it? I don't think so. I think the Falcons are still far enough away where this is a move for the long term, but you're still building up this infrastructure. You're still building up this house. There's a pool for sale that we could get on, oh God, what's the sites that you can get things from? Where somebody had used it and then
Craigslist was
Craigslist.
The one.
That's the one. Craigslist. There's a pool available on Craigslist. We haven't finished the kitchen yet, but hey, the pool looks pretty nice. Probably you should finish the kitchen first. You need a functional house. So I probably wouldn't do it if I'm the Falcons, given the cost of expense right now.
Right. And I'm with you on that one too. And what you said, and Falcons fans, I want you to listen up on this. He's a free agent in nine games. Okay. So if you make the playoffs, maybe in 12 games. And if you were a team that you were a legitimate contender for the Super Bowl, maybe a first is worth it. F them picks. That's what LA said. But LA was a legitimate contender for the Super Bowl. If you're the Buffalo Bills and you've got a hole at edge, the Kansas City Chiefs, and you're closer. Nobody in the NFC South should be trading first round picks for a guy that's going to be a free agent in January. Nobody.
And to add to that, though, it does sound like if Chubb is being traded, it's coming with an extension. Teams are not trading for Chubb without the extension in hand.
Right, which is also part of it. Do I want to? Now, the Falcons are going to have some money. Do I want to drop $20 million a year into Bradley Chubb? No, I don't.
I'd be okay with it if you weren't also giving up the first and third round pick.
A first and a third round pick and then $20 million. Yes. So again, there was a discussion on it on Twitter and I responded back and I was like, wait a minute. Someone said, oh, I'm upset we moved. It was Rise Up Reader, I think, on Twitter, who has a decent following, was saying, I'm mad we missed out on Roquan Smith, but as long as we get Bradley Chubb or Josh Allen, I'll be okay with it. And I started thinking, okay, long term, golly, do I want to sign Bradley Chubb to a free agent contract and spend all that money on him? He's with the limited production and the injury history. I'm like, wait a minute. He might make a trade for him right now. No way do I want this Falcons team to give up a first round plus, let's just say even a first round pick for a 1-year rental with the risk of signing that contract. So I'm not okay with the contract by itself as a free agent. Makes me nervous, let alone, like you just said, a 1 and then that contract as well. That's too much for my blood for this team. Would he make a difference? Absolutely. If I could get a 26-year-old top 10 corner to pair opposite AJ Terrell, and I knew I was going to get him for 5-6 years, who has played 3 years in. Let's say, who is that guy? Is it JC Jackson? Is he one of those guys?
One of the best young cornerbacks.
Yeah, who's a third-year, fourth-year cornerback that would be in the top 10 that you'd sign that's going to get a $20 million extension? Maybe the guy from the Browns that they just did it.
I think he already got signed,
contract.
Yeah.
Then I'm listening. But the injury history with Bradley Chubb, not the deal, and the not the trade and the contract. Not for me. Not this Falcons team. Not this year. Not yet.
Yep. You're still a year away, and I still think you're building the infrastructure around this team. So, unfortunately, probably not the way to go. We got Eric coming in here saying, "Morning, fellas. Can we get a round of applause for DJ Moore?" Yeah, good player. I think he's going to be a very good Chicago Bear coming up here pretty soon. So I'm hoping at least. Man, Scott, I got to say, we dished a lot last year because both our teams were in the hunt for that 2021 quarterback class. If we're ranking those guys, I think right now they're looking pretty darn close to how we had them coming in, because I know there's a lot of Zach Wilson love. Zach Wilson looks horrible. And you were the first one to be like, this guy doesn't get it. I wanted to have more games, but the interceptions he was throwing still at this far into his career, unbelievable, terrible. Justin Fields looks good.
It makes me nervous when you give a young quarterback time, and that's when he's at his worst.
Yeah.
The busted play is not a basis for an offense, and that's when he's okay. When he's improvising and he doesn't think. Get out of your head, kid. When he's just using those natural tools, and he's got one option because he's you're basically in panic mode because you're being chased by somebody who's trying to break you in half, and you've got what's in front of you, and you make that throw. He's got tools, no doubt about it. But I was Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, 1-2. After that was, and then late first, Mac Jones, incomplete on
Trey Lance.
On Trey Lance, because
that's fair. How could you? Yeah, how could you know?
It was incomplete on him. But yeah, DJ Moore, round of applause. Unfortunately for DJ Moore, he will not get to play against Cornell Armstrong every game. He's a good player, but he also might have a more consistent quarterback than PJ Walker coming at him too.
Yeah.
Michael Coretti comes in as a good question. He says, "When do you think we should bring in Ritter?" If Mariota gets hurt, if there's an injury, the way the team is playing, I don't see any reason to shuffle it around. You're in first place. Mariota's been playing well enough that there is no real reason to bring in Desmond Ritter right now. Mariota is getting the job done, and I don't want to shake up the chemistry of that team for a rookie quarterback right now. So for me, preseason game 1 next year, if as long as everybody stays healthy, and we're talking about along this current track, if there's a huge drop off or something like that, then 3 games of no touchdowns and 3 interceptions, then we'll talk. But along this current track for Mariota, if he stays steady where he is right now, preseason game 1 for Desmond Ritter, that's what I would want to see him next. Nick, what do you think?
I'm with you, but I would like to add the caveat that Mariota needs to feel, I think, a little bit more heat for these turnovers. The fumbles and the interceptions right now are pretty darn high for as few of true dropback sets as he's having. I mean, the Falcons are leading the NFL right now in play action dropbacks, I believe. They're like 39% of their passes or something are play action. A lot of simplified reads, and he's still putting the ball on the turf a good bit and the interceptions. So I think that right now with how the team is playing, you're in there in first place. Only the teammates and people in the building and the practices can tell you what each of them look like in that practice setting, which should be the first bit of information you use to evaluate who's going to play right now, given where you're at in the season. But Mariota needs to do a better job cleaning up the football, because this Falcons team does not have the horses on the defensive side of the ball to be put in bad situations. So Mariota's got to protect the football a little bit better.
I agree on all that. And, going into last week, we said, okay, I don't want to see 12 of 13 anymore. I'd rather see 18 of 25. I think he's been trustworthy enough to open it up a little bit more. Well, he did throw 2 picks, but he also threw 3 touchdowns, and some of that was catch and runs. A lot of it was catch and runs. That's okay. Yeah. You're finding ways to get Kyle Pitts involved by using him in motion, the wrap around into a screen and then turn him loose in the secondary. And, he took a big hit and the other dude didn't get up. You've heard me say how much I love tight ends in the secondary. That's why. It's a 50-pound mismatch, 60-pound mismatch in back there. But he was 20 of 28 passing with 3 touchdowns. Yes, two interceptions. But 20 of 28. And like I said, I was thinking 18 of 25, somewhere in there. That's pretty close. I'd like to see him about 25 attempts, but I don't think this year. I don't see any reason. I'm not calling for Desmond Ridder right now by any stretch of the imagination. This team is wildly exceeding expectations with him at quarterback. Chris coming in, and then we got to get going here pretty soon. We started a little late. We're going to keep it right at about a 30-minute show today, but we will be back tomorrow for an extended version. Do you think the Falcons are planning on drafting a quarterback in the first round in the next NFL draft? No, I don't. Right now, they'd be at 19. I don't think they would take a quarterback at 19. Even if they fall out of the first round, win the division, and they get into the pool, the non-playoff pool, I don't think they're taking a quarterback if they're picking between 12 and 20. I just don't.
I think they're going to evaluate all their options. And if Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot, decide that this is their guy, even maybe make a small trade to go up and get him, then I think it's possible. But it's got to be their guy, because once you take a quarterback in the first round, your clock as a decision maker, whether it be head coach or general manager, starts. Especially that'll be year 3 for these guys' debut. Mm-hmm. You're pretty much saying, like, this is the guy we're betting on. And there are quarterbacks in this class that maybe would be good fits. I really think that getting a quarterback with some rushing ability, some power, maybe would be an interesting fit for this offense long term. If there's somebody that fits their scheme, personality, whatever, definitely. So I think that they're going to evaluate all options, but they're not going to go into it desperately. They took a draft roll of the dice last year in Desmond Ridder. They got another year Marcus Mariota. If there's somebody that they love, then they should swing, right? But that's the caveat. It's the asterisk. Like, if you love this guy, then take him. But you have to do so knowing full well that probably your career then depends on this guy working out.
Yeah, at least, Arthur Smith's going to have a long career in this league. He'd be a retread for sure. He's shown enough that I think he's going to be just fine, even if it ends up going south. Everybody gets fired. You're hired to get fired. We'll all be complaining here. Anyway, Desmond Ridder's like 65 years old right now, and Roderick says, God, I hope not. I don't want him to draft a quarterback. The other caveat on that is has Desmond Ridder shown enough to pique the interest where he's got a second round value and you could package a first and Ridder to move up some? But again, not in the teens. I'm not taking a quarterback in the teens for this team. I'm more interested in edge, wide receiver, corner. What's your position?
I just heard you say wide receiver and my ears perked up. First round wide receiver. Let's go, baby. I mean, they're valuable. They're valuable. You got to have.
Well, they are, and if you're the offensive and defensive lines are playing so much better. Again, if those get solved, I'm okay with getting a skill guy.
BPA, baby.
You got to re-sign left guard. I'd be offering Wilkinson another contract right now, and Caleb McGarry's going to cost you some money at right tackle. He's going to cost you a little bit of money too. So if you take care of that, and again, you get me a talented big body in the trenches, and I'm pretty much never going to complain. But corner right now for me, another talented corner opposite, 2 more talented corners opposite AJ Terrell changes this team. Right now, I think that's your biggest change on this team. On that note, we are going to get out of here. We're going to be short today. We'll be back tomorrow with an extended version. We're going to do some post-trade deadline talk. We'll take a look forward to the Chargers. PJ Walker just carved you up. You ready for Justin Herbert? Okay. Remember what I just said? Corners. Hopefully AJ Terrell will be back. But Nick, appreciate you stopping in. Everybody appreciate you being here today. And if we don't take a wide receiver, we are falconing. They'll take a wide receiver. I just don't necessarily want one in the first round. I would have been pretty pleased with Alec Pierce in the second round. He's doing really, really well for Indianapolis right now. Drake London's a good player. You keep stacking good players, you're going to be just fine. Forget needs. This team needed everything. If you hit on your top draft picks, you're going to be just fine. On that note, I'm going to get out of here. We're going to hop over to Mile High Huddle. I just got back from Jolly old England. Had a good time. And Nick and I are going to catch up on Broncos, Jaguars, and trade deadline. So check us out on Falcons Podcast. If you want to listen to us after the fact, falconspodcast.com. We'll give you all of the places that you want to go, Apple, Spotify, all of those. So that gives you the links to everywhere you can find us. So until tomorrow morning, we appreciate you being here, and we'll see you next time.